And one of the things that so stood out in the Sufi teaching, kind of so more the Arabic language, is the term fana, which means annihilation. Now, annihilation, it's a little strong of a word and it kind of hurts a little bit to say it, But with fana, with annihilation, what the spiritual practice, it's not about gaining wisdom and merit and working your way up this ladder where you get more wise and more enlightened and more capable, Fana is about taking everything away. And little by little, everything is taken away. And at first, your anger is taken away and you jump for joy that all these things, but then your health is taken away. Then your youthful vitality is taken away.
I'm Michael Max, and this is Qiological, the podcast that curates East Asian medicine and methods through the power of conversation. Whenever I hear imposter syndrome being mentioned, I get both curious and uncomfortable. Uncomfortable in that it seems like a pat answer to a very real and present difficulty, and curious in that I don't understand why you'd want to hold yourself back from something that has your interest and motivation. I understand not wanting to undertake something because of the fear of failure. The imagined embarrassment and talking behind your back, those are real barriers that can hinder taking a leap of faith in yourself. I get it that making mistakes in public in real time, that showing your work as you're in the learning process, that's something that's not for the faint of heart. But imposter syndrome, for some reason, when I hear that, I find myself itching for a fight. Imposter syndrome is defined by my AI robot as a psychological experience where individuals doubt their abilities and accomplishments, feeling like they're deceiving others by presenting themselves as more competent than they believe they truly are. Here's my take. That feeling of doubting abilities, I think it's worthwhile. It's worthwhile because anything worth doing takes time, effort, attention, and iterative cycles of learning. I think maybe it's worth considering the question of, have I earned this? Here's a few examples that I know I'm guilty of. 1, taking the class does not mean that I understand or can competently apply what's been taught. Just because I have a certificate that says I attended, for that matter, I may have even passed a multiple choice exam. None of that guarantees that I'm actually capable of doing the work. Skill is not given, it's earned. Capacity is not bestowed, it's developed. There's a lot of getting it wrong on the way to getting it right, and for sure, that means there are plenty of times when you won't feel like you have it because the truth is, you don't. Yet. Number 2, actually having a degree or certificate means I'm capable. Maybe at least capable of jumping through the hoops of getting that degree. But the actual work, well, that is another story. Knowing how a tool works is not the same as knowing how to use the tool. 3, I don't like feeling stupid or slow. While there are people with learning disabilities and cognitive impairment, most people aren't stupid. We're just unskilled. And yes, even after years of education, you might still be unskilled in learning how to learn something new and less than facile in developing and updating your cognitive models. I know it takes me more time than I wished it would to grok new information. But personal paradigms, at least mine, they are resistant to change. It takes time and ideally some other fellow travelers on the journey of learning how to puzzle things out. Number 4, attempting to defang uncertainty. Let's face it, uncertainty is by and large uncomfortable. You're inviting a situation where your ability to control the situation or the reaction of others, it's minimal. The ego, with its self-awarded glory and brilliance, it's in for a shellacking. We must willingly make ourselves vulnerable to learn, improve, and gain skill and capacity. It's necessary to learn to invite the fire that will temper your mettle. I could go on, but that would get boring. Here it is in a nutshell. I don't think there's any such thing as imposter syndrome. There's only the recognition of whether or not you've earned your capacity. In any endeavor, especially one that spans decades like an acupuncture practice, there are changes that come from the natural development of how we refine and mature in our work. What was appropriate in the beginning will not serve you well in mid-career, and the later stages of practice, the challenge and opportunities in that, you can't even see it from mid-career. The effusive outbursting of wood cannot visualize the experience of being metal, but given time and the progress of life, you'll get there. In this conversation with Whitfield Reeves, we explore the later stages of practice, the challenges, opportunities, and perhaps even more importantly, the harvest of having lived as an acupuncturist. These conversations come to you through the generous support of our sponsors and members. Blue Poppy, your new one-stop shop, has speedy shipping options on everything that you need for your clinic. It's Women's Health Month at Mayway Herbs. Check out their new website for learning resources on helping women with herbal medicine. Are you a creature of habit? How about making a change that helps your patients and the planet with AcuFast needles? And later in the show, raising your fees doesn't have to be a difficult process. Jane has helpful suggestions on making it easy and effective. And finally, have you considered that having a thriving, profitable practice is one of the most healing things that you can do? Julie Bear Don't Walk has, and she can help you do something about it too. Do be sure to visit the sponsors page on the Qiological website to take advantage of all the special offers our terrific sponsors have for listeners of the podcast. Picture this. Your clinic is buzzing with patients, and then you realize that you're down to your last box of needles. No need for panic, because Blue Poppy, your one-stop shop for all your acupuncture needs, they ship orders received before 3 p.m. on the same day. With a quick visit to Blue Poppy's website, you can order premium needles, herbal formulas, and that special Dr. Bob's oil that your patients love. Blue Poppy understands practitioners can't keep patients waiting. That's why they strive to get you what you need when you need it. From high-quality Chinese herbs and formulations to acupuncture supplies and clinical essentials, Blue Poppy has served practitioners for nearly 40 years with products that meet the highest of standards. Discover everything Blue Poppy has to offer by visiting www.bluepoppy.com, and don't forget to subscribe to their mailing list for exclusive offers and more.
Hi folks, I'm Yvonne Lyle, president of Mayway Herbs. May is Women's Health Month, and as a women-owned and women-run business, we especially love how Chinese medicine can support wellness through every stage of a woman's life. So in this month's newsletter and podcast, we're covering topics like PMS, pregnancy, menopause, and osteoporosis. We'll share expert insights and effective treatment strategies you can put to good use in your clinic. Our Plumflower brand line includes herbal tea pills, tablets, extract granules, and organic herbs, all of which you can find on Mayway.com, and where you can also find articles, videos, and other resources to support your practice. Since 1969, Mayway has been a trusted source for high-quality herbal products. In these challenging times, please know that we remain committed to keeping our products accessible and affordable so you can take care of yourself and your patients. As always, thank you for supporting Real Chinese Medicine.
Daily habits and routines feel comforting, familiar, easy, automatic. That's the power of repetition. You've worked out the kinks and can do it with your eyes closed. But what if you shook things up? What if you ditched the old routine and tried something new? Hi, I'm John Sten. I've practiced acupuncture for over 30 years, and together with my wife Kelly, we created the world's first eco-friendly acupuncture needle. The AcuFast earth-friendly needle system cuts your packaging waste by 60 to 90%, depending upon your needle type, speeds up your needling, gives you more control, and best of all, while you're healing patients, we plant a tree for every 2 boxes your clinic uses. Thousands of acupuncturists have already made the switch. In just the last year, they've helped plant over 16,000 trees. Since we started, that number has grown to over 50,000. So break the routine. Be the change. Visit acufastneedles.com. Your patients and the planet will thank you.
Whitfield Reeves, welcome to Geological.
Michael, it's been a while, but it's a pleasure to be here. And I'm very appreciative that you still continue to do this for the good of all.
Well, I get a lot out of this. I get to talk to interesting people every single week. You know, some people have a favorite TV show. I like tune in some Chinese medicine practitioner.
There we go. Yeah. Because we've all got weird stories and good ones and bad ones and strange ones. So yeah, lots of episodes, huh?
Well, I would hope so. So we had a little email exchange recently. We were talking about like getting old, what that means for practice, like how you practice and what a practice looks like. And, you know, so often we talk about new practitioners and helping them get along and all that. But there's a bunch of folks, and we're not at the beginning of our practice. We're not in the middle of it either. We're somewhere toward something like the end, whatever that is. But it doesn't get talked about, you know? When I was younger, I used to think, well, you know, Chinese medicine practitioners, they practice until they die. You know, it's the meritorious thing to do. I'm not sure I feel that way anymore. What are your thoughts? What's it like for you? How long have you been at this anyway?
Well, I started licensed in the state of California in 1981. So it's 40 plus years. And my teacher, my first teacher, Grace Liu, I remember visiting her when she was 85 years old and she had macular degeneration. And she was so angry and so upset that she couldn't continue to practice because she couldn't see well enough. And so that's the pool that I got out of, you know, or got in. And so I have it in me that acupuncturists continue to work until they die. However, I don't feel that way anymore. And I can't really tell you that I know how I feel about this because right now I'm in this really exciting stage of rethinking something which we can talk about at some point. And so I'm excited about some ideas. And so I'm not thinking about quitting, but I actually went through a process where I said, okay, I'm going to be done with my acupuncture sports medicine apprenticeship program. And I need my students, you know, they're not really my students now. They're my colleagues, you know, they've been doing this for a long time, you know, and I need them to take over. And I spent a lot of energy trying to figure out how to monetize Whitfield Reeves's work or how to put it together so that it could be continued on in a bright and in a clear way, but that I would also have some degree of perhaps royalties, you know, from all this. And we went and we had all of these discussions and conversations, and 1 or 2 or 3 years have gone by. And just like about 3 or 4 months ago, I just said, this isn't mine to monetize. This isn't mine to claim that I have ownership of, or that I should be financially remunerated, you know? Like I was at Pacific Symposium 2 Novembers ago, and I remember walking around and having people come up to me saying, you don't remember me. It was 30 years ago. It was 40 years ago. It was 20 years ago. All of this stuff, all of these influences that the work that we've done has had. And I felt like, boy, I certainly have not been remunerated. I haven't been paid for the influence that I've had. And about 3 or 4 months ago, I just said, sure, I have been given so much. I have been filled with so much energy that I'm done. I'm not trying to make something out of this anymore. And so I'll teach, and I'll teach until I'm done teaching, which is, as you say, pretty soon. Like, it's harder for me to get through a 3-day weekend now. It's a lot of lung chi that I don't have. And when the time is right, it'll flow, and my colleagues will take over because they really believe in this work. And I don't have claim. It's not owed to me that this should be turned into some cash flow or some fame flow or something that would benefit me. And once I let go of that, it's like, wow, I'm a free man, and now I feel like teaching forever. But I get in the classroom now and I feel my age almost immediately.
Great points. One of which is there's a relationship you have with younger practitioners. And at one point, they're your students. At another point, they become your colleagues, right? You go a turn or two on the spiral, and those relationships change. You go from the mentor to something else. I'm not even sure what the word is. You also bring up something, and I think this is important. The piece about monetization and the piece about legacy. So legacy doesn't necessarily mean monetization, but monetization is also a piece, and it's important. And I think it's important because, look, you make something, you create something. Nature works on an exchange of value. It's a mistake when we give away things and not bring in resources to ourselves. Of course, it's also a problem if you get kind of grabby and you ask for more than, you're really creating in terms of value. But this is amazing. Like, working out that sense of value for yourself. What do I need to get back? Do I need to get something back? That's rich. It sounds like something an older person, an elder, I'll just use the word elder, an elder would consider. You don't consider that when you're younger. You're just trying to make ends meet. That's a great story.
Yeah. Well, this is very much in line with my own personal spiritual practice, if you wish to say that. I don't like to use that word because it just means it's been so corrupted. And I don't even talk to my closest students about much of this. But in the earliest years of my practice, I was a Buddhist, or I followed Buddhist teachings and Buddhist teachers, mostly the teachers that had so much energy. The Tibetan teacher that just was so incredible. The energy was just so magnificent, And in Buddhism, there's this thing that happens in North America, and I don't know if this is how it's supposed to be, but this is what's happened, where you have this idea of accumulating merit and wisdom. And it's about gaining something. It's about you get more. And once you finish this practice, then you're good enough to go on to the next practice. And you just have the same hierarchy that you see in all the other religious organizations. And it's terrifying. And so I met a Sufi teacher, and he was English. He was not a Persian or Arab, but he was English. And one of the things that so stood out in the Sufi teaching, kind of so more the Arabic language, is the term fana, which means annihilation. Now, annihilation, it's a little strong of a word, and it kind of hurts a little bit to say it, But with fana, with annihilation, what the spiritual practice, it's not about gaining wisdom and merit and working your way up this ladder where you get more wise and more enlightened and more capable. Fana is about taking everything away, and little by little everything is taken away. And at first, your anger is taken away and you jump for joy that all these things, but then your health is taken away. then your youthful vitality is taken away. Then your spouse is taken away. And you start losing things that are dear to you. But the whole concept is when you strip yourself of all that stuff, what's left is a pure, divine, whole being. And that's really been the last 20 years of my life. So as my spiritual practice shifted, my acupuncture practice shifted. So it was easier for me to kind of go, you know what? I'm not going to try to monetize this. I'm not going to try to gain legacy. I'm not going to try to get anything because it's not mine. It was never intended to be mine. My teacher and my teachers have taught me things and I've passed them down, but they were never intended to be mine. They're ours. And I'm just in that teacher, student, teacher, student, teacher sort of lineage that's so beautiful about Chinese medicine. It's just what I've come to just love about Chinese medicine is that relationship exists, and it doesn't exist in a lot of situations. And to kind of just to be blessed to have a teacher that knows who you are and will help you is amazing. And not all acupuncturists have that. Matter of fact, maybe most acupuncturists don't. So they study, they learn, they do the best they can. But the magic comes with that energy that is so tied all the way back to the saints and and the masters 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. You could trace it.
Well, and the masters of today. Let's not forget the masters of today. Chinese medicine is a light that comes through each generation. It's kindled anew in every generation, right? Medicine is learned anew in every generation. I'm so struck by, on one hand, like gaining the merit, gaining the experience, gaining the capability, being able to teach it to people. Look, it's easy to get grabby about the things that we like. Our vision, right? I don't want my vision to go away. I got my hands all over it. Here you are having a moment where you go, you know what? I'm letting it go. You were struggling with it, and then you let it go. And when you let it go, whoa, all of a sudden you have all this other energy show up. This other thing comes along. It's not empty. There's something. But it comes not through acquiring, it comes through releasing that idea. and I've heard this, and I think it's like Rumi poetry, where I usually hear it, right? Because he's in that tradition where it's like, your job is just to take away the obstructions to love, right? You're not supposed to gain love, just take away the obstructions.
Yeah. And then you see what's there.
It's
beautiful.
Yeah. Well, here's something else too. Legacy. It's like I want someone to like hit a gong in my mind. Whenever I hear the word legacy, like destiny is the other one, like destiny, legacy, bong. I hear this like gong, right? Legacy. It's heavy. I'm not sure if it's something that's ever ours in the first place. Kind of like reputation. We don't have a reputation. Reputation is what other people say about us. Legacy is what other people have to say about what we've done. That's just my suspicion. How's that? Does that land for you? How's that? I'm curious to know what you think about that.
Absolutely. When I was at Pacific Symposium 2 times ago, a year and a few months ago, and I had all of these people, thank you. You really changed my practice, not me, but the work, and I just heard it so many times. And I went, how could I complain? How could I even think that I need to figure out how to have legacy? I mean, the legacy is living right now. And all these people came up and thanked me and were so appreciative of what they had gotten. Some of them never meeting me before, just seeing a video or something,
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Or maybe they learned it from one of your students,
And so, and these were people I didn't even know, and so that made me kind of really take a close look at that. Legacy is beautiful, when you accept it and when it just is. And it's pretty nasty when you try to get it and try to preserve it and try to make a flag and fly your flag. Ooh, boy, that's bad stuff, man.
Well, it sounds like it takes a whole lot of work and effort.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know, what are some of the other things that are arising for you now that you've got this more open, empty field?
Well, I got two things that come to mind. First off is going kind of back to the empirical tradition of Chinese medicine. And you look at how that works, how the practitioner like does a point and something happens and they go, wow. And then they do it again and it happens again. And you start learning through experience, different techniques and points and what have you. And what really stands out to me in that is that there's no teacher, there's no hierarchy, there's nobody that knows more, there's nobody that knows less. Everybody is on an equal playing field. You could be in your first year of practice and make an observation that could contribute to, via the empirical method, to the flowing of that energy as it progresses and gets more precise and more disciplined and as it grows, and everybody is equal. There's no boss. You don't go to somebody and go, hey, I just saw this happen. Is that true? Of course it's true because you just saw it happen,
Well, this is a really great point here. This is really, and I appreciate that you've got the sensibility here. This is very democratizing in a sense. It's leveling. We're all in the same field. There's a couple things that come to mind for me. Number one is, have we cultivated enough attention that we can notice these things? I think that's one piece. The other piece is, and I know for myself that I learned from teachers and that stuff was helpful. They were kind of a scaffolding to get me started. And I can remember in the first handful of years, I just followed my teachers because I didn't know how to use my attention on its own without following like the structures and the scaffolding that they gave me to attend with. But at a certain point, I realized, I think I see something here, and I'd follow it. And it was not at all what my teachers had taught me. And in the beginning I felt like I was a bit of a traitor. I felt like I was not, I'm struggling for the word. And of course, every teacher wants their students to grow into the kind of practitioner that they're meant to be. But there was the reliance I had on these teachers and their teachings and their ways of perceiving, so that when I first started to notice my own and lean on it and use it, I was like, oh, are they going to be disappointed in me? Oh, am I not that's the word. Am I being disrespectful of my teacher by coloring outside the lines?
But once we understand that this living tradition of the empirical method, whether you're in Western medicine or Chinese medicine, it doesn't really matter, but once you accept that it's this evolution and this flow of energy and that everybody is on equal ground, you don't have to look to a teacher. I mean, they might be able to give you some explanations about why they think something occurred that you observed. But really, that is what makes me think that we can't have teachers and we can't have programs with this incredible, where we give our power away to the teacher, that everybody is okay just the way they are, just at the stage that they are at in that moment. And that's what's amazing about the system.
This episode is brought to you by Jane, the clinic management software that honestly just makes running a practice easier. Let's dive into something that's never easy, but sometimes necessary: raising your fees. It can feel awkward, right? But Here's a tip that can really help. Consider offering flexibility to your patients as you introduce the change. When patients face new fees, it's natural for them to feel uncertain or concerned. That's where flexibility can really make a difference. Offering options like a phased increase, suggesting a payment plan, or even taking a moment to talk things through can help to ease the transition. These thoughtful gestures show your patients that you're listening and care about them, which strengthens the trust you've worked so hard to build. If you're looking for more ideas on how to navigate these kinds of changes, head to frontdesk.jane.app and check out the article, How to Tell Clients You're Raising Your Fees. One last thing, if you're ready to give Jane a try, you can use the code CHEOLOGICAL for a 1-month grace period on your new Jane account. So I want to push back just a little bit on that, or play devil's advocate maybe. Because on one hand, like at the heaven level, let's say, like you are okay the way you are. That's a very heavenly way. But down here on the rock, down here on the earth, there are places where, guess what? You're not good enough. You don't know what you're doing. Or maybe you don't know enough yet. Or maybe you got some delusion about how things work and you're not paying attention very well. I think there are indeed places where, no, actually you need to game up a little bit and get some more skill. I think there's a place for both. Again, at that heavenly level, we are where we are who we are. And I would say we're perfect in that because it's a developmental thing. But at certain stages of development, I suspect we need more guidance.
I totally agree. And I certainly am not saying, there are some acupuncturists that really lack skill and really lack touch. And really, they've got a long way to go before they're going to be even average. So from that standpoint, yeah, I'm not saying everybody is good and can help people. But once you understand where you're at and really in a very disciplined and adult fashion are able to reflect upon where you're at, then you know how to take care of the things that you don't know how to do and get guidance, as you say, from the teacher. So yeah.
Tell me more about the discipline that's required for this.
Well, discipline is enormous. And you said it at the beginning of this. You said that your mind has to be clear enough to be able to make the observations or something of that nature, you insinuated. And I think that everybody in the acupuncture world needs to have some sort of a meditation practice of stilling the mind so that they can observe phenomena and observe their own behavior and their own results and kind of go, oh man, I'm not doing very good. These people are not getting better. And I'm all about making sure that there is some discipline, that the inner discipline that the student takes and practices so that they can handle all of this. Because if you're going to say that everybody's on equal footing and you are all part of this collective energy, that's one thing. But if you're not skilled, you're part of the energy, but you still got to learn. You still got to get better. You still got to work.
Yeah, I think you have to work a lot. When I was younger, I hated that word discipline. I think I hated it because I wasn't very disciplined myself. Very laissez-faire. Like, oh yeah, anything's going to be fine. Like, whatever, man. Peace. Probably from smoking too much weed as a kid. It really didn't help. And as time went on, and maybe again, this is a kind of maturation that happens, where over time you look at your life, at least I have with mine, and go, man, there's some things that are not working well. This car I have, I never know if it's going to start. I think I need to do better, and I don't know what to do to get better. It's hard to look at yourself when you're just not doing well and take a kind of inventory and figure out what do I need to do to up this game a bit. You've worked with athletes for a long time. And so you probably know this in some innate way. I had a wonderful conversation with your friend and student, Jenny Nieders, like a little while back. Seems like everything was a little while back at this point. And she said something about the professional athlete world that just rocked me. She said, it's a world of no excuses. Professional athletes live in a world of no excuses. And man, it just went through me. It's like, that's how you get to be that kind of a person. Like something doesn't go your way or it doesn't go well. Well, guess who's on the hook? You are.
Yeah. We could apply that to the acupuncturist and, the same. There's no excuses. You got to perform. Jenny's doing a great job with her work. And I'm very pleased about her working with the 49ers and other, football and other professional athletes. So she's doing great. She's learned a lot about how these people think and how they react to needles, and very, very pleased with her.
It's cool, when someone gets a direction and you just keep going, right? You just like take a deep dive into it. At a certain point, I think the situation itself, again, if you have the clarity of mind, it teaches you what needs to be done.
Well, I called Jenny a couple of days ago, and we have a course that we teach called the Practicum series. And essentially is once a practitioner has gone through our acupuncture sports medicine apprenticeship program, they then have the opportunity to take the practicum, which has been written and outlined and designed as just come in and this is a refresher. We're going to practice needling, all these different places that you've already learned. We're not going to teach those again, but we're going to just observe and supervise. We're all about supervision of practice. And so that was the practicum, but it started to get to be a little complex because there was no instruction. It was all needling, and everybody, was leaking by Sunday, at 5:00. Everybody just had so many holes in them from all this needling.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, over treatment like crazy. Yeah. It would kind of wipe you out.
Yeah, way too much. So I said, Jenny, I want to teach what I've essentially done in my work, and my contribution really is that I've looked at the static anatomical structures like the supraspinatus muscle or the gluteus medius muscle or the infraspinatus muscle or the pectoralis minor or what have you. And I just see them in a static sense and like, here's the origin, here's the insertion, here's the muscle belly, and here's a few very important places that you can needle. And when this muscle is dysfunctional, it causes X, Y, or Z symptoms. But we look at each of these things, right? And so people come out and they've got this anatomical understanding of the points, and then they weave that into the rest of their practice. So what I said to Jenny was, Jenny, I want to add to this practicum. When they come back for this review, what I want to do is talk about how these different points are related to each other, and how, sometimes when the hip goes out, the knee goes out and the ankle goes out and what have you, and those kind of more regional kind of dysfunctions and interrelated things. I said, what is that called? What language would I use to say that? She said, well, in the physical therapy world, it's called regional interdependence.
Oh, what a great term.
Regional interdependence. And I've been doing this for the last 4 or 5 days now. I have been Googling and reading everything I can find about regional interdependence. And so much of it is summarized for the physical therapist is, hey, isn't this cool? You work on this area here and the area over there gets better. Well, we've been doing that for a long, long, long time, for generations. But the physical therapists are describing why and what are some of the anatomical features and what have you. And so I'm having a great time on regional interdependence and then putting together that into a TCM point of view, a Chinese medicine, a meridian more, Jinglo more than anything else, more than Zhang Fu. Jinglo sort of some rules and some ideas of how all that fits together, and I'm having a great time. So I can't tell you where it's going to end up, but I've been thrilled, totally thrilled. And so I'm about 20 years younger the last 5 days because I'm so excited about new material. So that's what I've been doing. We'll see where it goes.
It's very uplifting hearing this. You let go of something that's been worrying you. You have this new space. You have these new ideas come in. So I've not been at it nearly as long as you. I've got, 25-ish years in the boat. But enough time. And like during COVID in particular, I remember when COVID hit and I thought, you know what? I'm still in my early mid-60s. I could just retire and go on the dole, just done. Just call it a day, done. I remember closing my clinic for a couple of months at the beginning of COVID, and it was great. It was actually great. After about 3 weeks, I had this incredibly wonderful sense of feeling lighter. And the word that came through was, this is great. I feel unburdened. And I thought, that's really weird because I loved my work. What's with the unburdened? What's the burden? And of course, what I discovered was the burden was, well, I'm taking care of other people. And as much as I appreciate it and I'm grateful for the opportunity, it carries a weight. We carry a weight as well. I find that there's these cycles of, well, this is tough. I'm slogging through, I'm working something out. I don't even know what it is I'm working out, but I just know I'm in the midst of it. And then other times, it's just this sense of, with you, utter delight. Oh, this is really fun again. I had something happen about 6 months ago where I stopped apologizing for acupuncture being weird, right? Patients would come out of a treatment and they go, I feel blah, 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 blah. This is really weird. And I wouldn't try to normalize it. I just go, yep, you're right, it is. It's weird. Just leave it at that. People kind of liked it, that we just left it at weird, all right? And I felt better. There's something else here, a lot more for me to learn. I'm going to leave it in the realm of weird for the moment because it just means I don't understand it yet. Every now and then, I think, I'm starting to get the hang of this, and it's so enlivening.
I certainly don't want you to think, I don't want the listener to think that my delight over regional interdependence keeps me from feeling those heavy weights that you're talking about that pop up, there's times where I just go, oh God, another patient with another story, So yeah, I go through the same cycles of feeling just because I feel overly responsible at times, So it makes this extra weight. So yeah, I'd love to figure out how to just make the weight not be there. And I can do that a lot. In 45 years of practice, you got to learn how to do that. Or are you going to shoot yourself? I haven't shot myself.
Yeah, you just won't be able to continue it. That's for sure. Overly responsible. Tell me more about what that means. What's that mean? Overly responsible?
Well, my mother and father were both Southerners. My father's from Georgia, my mother's from Texas. And I was sort of raised as a proper, Southern young adult as I aged. And I said, yes, sir. And yes, ma'am. And, what have you. And what I developed was this sense of feeling like I'm responsible, for the family, or if I'm teaching, I'm responsible, that everybody's going to learn. And not everybody learns. If I'm on an outing, I feel responsible because some people don't have a good time. Well, not everybody has a good time. Some people just have to have their own experience. But there was a part of me for many years when I was younger that I just wanted everybody to be happy. I wanted everybody to be content, everybody to be satisfied. And when that got into Whitfield, the acupuncturist, then it's like everybody is going to have to get better. And not everybody gets better.
Oh my God. Yeah, I hear you, brother. I hear you. You're not alone. I think many of us do. Yeah, for sure. Many of us do. I have found, I watch this in myself, right? I watch that wanting my patients to get better because then I will feel okay about me. Here's an observation. Oh, I don't want to put that kind of burden on my patient. They've already got enough going on. It's not my job to ask them to take care of how I feel as an acupuncturist. There's a certain okayness I suspect we have to gain with sometimes things don't work out the way we like it to, or the patient would like it to. We can't take that on as our identity.
But it's so easy to do, and it happens all the time. And, this is where teachers are particularly helpful to help point out that, hey, you're way over indulging your responsibility, on this one.
Yeah, you're over your skis. In terms of your practice, what's it look like these days? How's it changed over the years?
Well, now I'm 73.
Never been that old before, have you?
Yeah, no, it's kind of new. And so I am semi-retired from practicing. And so I will treat 1, 2, or 3 patients that are referred that are referred to me as orthopedic, patients from a podiatrist or orthopod, a physical therapist. I've got a few people. And I'm not just taking people that just call up and go, oh, I hear you're acupuncturist. I want to come in. So it's a referral only, very specific cases. And what I think is the most important thing that I've learned is how to say no to some cases. So some patients come in and go, you know what? I can't do this. This is going to not have a good outcome. So I never let patients schedule online. They got to talk to me personally first. And if they don't have the right kind of thing, I send them to somebody else. So one, it's selecting your patient. So I get very good results, but I'm selecting my patients very carefully. And then I am very, very observant that if after 1 or 2 or 3 visits, if things aren't going the way I want them to be going, then I will send them, let's take a manual therapy point of view. I'm going to send you to a physical therapist. I just move them on quickly. This idea of I'm treating somebody, 10 or 20 times and saying, well, I guess it's not going to work. For me, it's like 3 times. I get very good results on the people that can last, that can hold out, that I'm still allowing to come in to see me. So I'm not getting bogged down by difficult, multi-layered cases with multiple surgeries and scar tissues and all kinds of problems. I'm just not good at that. I don't like doing that. I like to fix things. And if I don't feel like I can fix something, I'll send them to somebody else. There's lots of acupuncturists that are designed, they're set up to see people twice a week. They got insurance. They can just do that. But boy, that's not what I want to be.
Having a thriving, profitable practice is one of the most healing things you can do as a healthcare practitioner. Because a robust business is the ultimate expression of vital chi. And that's the heart of our medicine. I'm Julie Bairdontlock, and I help practitioners grow nourishing, profitable, authentic businesses that embody the generative cycle of Chinese medicine. This isn't about all yang all the time. It's about expanding your own internal capacity, growing collaborative relationships with your patients for ethical patient retention, and marketing as an extension of this medicine, not a necessary evil. You already know that everything is connected in your patients' lives and bodies. The same is true for your business. When we align your systems, your schedule, your pricing, and your offerings with you, we create flow, which means more spaciousness, more impact, and more joy. When you are in the flow, fully resourced in terms of chi, time, and money, your business becomes a source of healing, not just for your patients, but for you. Let's grow something rooted, radiant, and real. Visit lifeflowconsulting.com to learn more.
I think that's so important. And one of the benefits of having practiced for a long time, you know who you are, you know what you do, you know the kind of people you want to work with. I also screen the people that come to see me. Well, partly because about 7 years ago, I moved my practice into a house that I bought. I've got a separate area that's the clinic, but it's my house. So, if someone calls and they sound like they're drunk or stoned or something, I'm going to refer them somewhere else, right? So there's that piece. But there's also the piece of, do I feel like I can help you, right? Some folks, fertility, for example, it's not my jam. I've got plenty of people I can refer to. Now, sometimes people still will come to me because they want to. And if they're referred by somebody, I'll say yes. But I'm very clear with them that Chinese medicine will not make them pregnant, but it might be able to help them if they're capable. I put the idea out that acupuncture won't move against nature. It will move with nature. And if you're okay working with me, working with nature, like, let's work. If you want to work at cross purposes with nature, then go see those IVF folks, right? Because they can do that. So some of it's just my personality, what I feel like I can do, what I feel like I can't do. It's really wonderful knowing that there are certain things like, not on my list of things to do. When I first started practicing, I was so excited. Like Chinese medicine, I can treat anything. Watch this. Yeah, it turned out I couldn't treat everything. And I was terrible with like severe mental health issues. I thought I really could use Chinese medicine for that. And man, that didn't help at all. At least in my hands. Maybe other people it can. I think that's something you get over the years. So what are you doing with the rest of your time?
So I live in Hawaii. I think I work about maybe 40%, a little less than half time. Combination of teaching, writing. I do a number of webinars to different places that want me to teach for a day or a weekend or something. So I'm still doing webinars, which I swear I would not do once the pandemic ended. But I ended up having so much great video of the treatments that I was able to really teach really quite good classes online because people could see exactly where the needles were going and, what have you. So, I'm a little less than half time with patients, with teaching and with online teaching and webinars and the sort. Yeah. So I get in the ocean every day. I play the bass guitar and so I've been playing with different Hawaiian musicians, backing them up. The bass guitar is really, really important to me. And there's times when I feel frustrated with my ability to play the bass because I put the bass aside for 25 years when I went to acupuncture school. I can't do this. I've got to train my fingers to be sensitive and capable as palpatories, tools. And this is what Worsley had told his students. And I sort of heard that. And I sort of went, he told his students, quit playing the guitar because you get calluses on your fingers. You can't feel as good. I don't believe that now, but then I thought it was reasonable. So there's times where I'll get on a full length mirror, have my bass, and I'll play a scale or whatever I'm trying to work on the bass, and I'll watch my fingers and I'll go, Whit, bring your acupuncture fingers, bring your palpating fingers into this instrument. And I watch myself and I can just watch my fingers change from kind of a more rigid I'm trying really hard to play the bass and learn it, and be good. And now I bring my acupuncture fingers in, and they're so much more adept. And I just look in the mirror and I just get them there. It just sort of rewrites, rescripts, resets the neuromuscular connections. And then all of a sudden I'm playing the bass better. So I play the bass every day. I try to get in the ocean every day, and I meditate every day. Then whatever else happens is what happens. I'm still married. Mary and I have been married for 35 years, so I've got a wife to wrestle with.
It'll keep you on your toes. I love that you recognize that you were playing guitar with guitar fingers, but you could bring your acupuncture fingers to it.
Oh man, it was a revelation.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I hear you say it and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. That's right. I think this is true. And I think people that are listening can probably think of moments in their life where they've taken their acupuncture sensibilities, brought it into a sphere where they hadn't used it before. But oh my goodness, is it a transferable technology?
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. And if we could just help our students to do that, to know that they can do that. I mean, I always say, like when I used to teach one of Acupuncture 101, the first day students, first class, first year, I go, look, none of you all are here to learn acupuncture, really. If you are, you're gonna, like in 5 years, you're gonna be wearing a white coat, have a clipboard, and you're gonna have your stuff, and you're gonna look at yourself and you're gonna go, what the hell am I doing? I say, what you're here to do is to find yourself. You're here to grow into yourself in ways that you've never known, and you're going to grow into yourself and have that be the acupuncturist that is going to be performing these skills that you've learned, rather than thinking that, okay, I'm going to be a whole different person now. I'm going to be an acupuncturist. You got to be yourself. And the acupuncturist can reside in that energy field. And I've said that, and I had many, many students 5 years later come back and tell me, you were so right about that, and some of them who didn't do that, who came back 5 years later and said, you know what, I should have listened to you, because now I'm stuck thinking I'm an acupuncturist with all these answers, and it's not going very well. I'm not very happy. I'm going to have to completely reset things.
But isn't that part of the development anyway? We have an idea, or we have a set of skills, or we have some competencies, or we have some challenges that are holding us back. And as you resolve the challenges, as you gain, I'm going to use a word you said earlier, as you gain merit, as you gain capacity, and then you can utilize that and you become better at what you do. So like when I hear that, and I love it, and it terrifies me, when I hear you say, you're going to grow into the acupuncturist you're going to be. On one hand, I'm like, oh, that sounds really great. And there's another part of me that's like, who the hell is that going to be? What does he look like? What's his life look like? Who is he? How does he behave? Am I even going to like that cat? Am I going to turn into something I might not even like or want? I don't know. I have to run a business. I'm going to become the man. I don't know if I want that. I think it's true. I think we do grow into who we are, but there's also a lot of shedding. This goes back to something you said earlier. There's a lot of shedding of who we aren't on the way to getting to who we actually are.
And Michael, I'm telling that to students all the time. You've got to let go of X. You've got to let go Y. So some acupuncturists who come to us, one of the first things I say is, you've got to get rid of fertility. If you're going to stay focused because you want to be a fertility acupuncturist, or even more interestingly, because the money is there, to be a fertility acupuncturist, that's going to be a huge obstruction to you really being good at orthopedic and sports acupuncture. But I'm telling people all the time, you got to let go of stuff. You got to let go of stuff. You've got to have a hobby that you like doing. Mine was the bass guitar. You have to be able to get into nature. Mine was hiking. And you have to have a mental discipline. Mine was meditation. I never could figure out the martial arts and how the martial arts would work for me. So martial arts was never my thing. Meditation, I understood. I understood working the mind, but some of the martial arts stuff with the body, it just didn't, it never really grabbed me so much.
Yeah. Well, we have to have something, but it's different. Yeah, it's different for everybody. So there's a physical piece, there's a mental piece, there's a nature piece, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. I think to do well in this medicine, you have to have a connection with nature. And probably the main reason why I moved to Hawaii is that every single day, at some point or another, sometimes all day long, I'm just out there and I'm feeling the wind. I'm feeling, I'm seeing the trees, the breeze, the water, the light, the elements are just so profoundly experienceable in Hawaii every day, sometimes every moment of every day. But I mean, that's a little bit demanding when you have to work or do other things. But boy, it's enough to be able to just have every day that a connection where you look into the forest and just go, oh, nice. That's one of the things that I really like about Hawaii. There's a lot of things I don't like about Hawaii. Let me tell you, there's a lot of problems living here, but connection with the elements.
Is that so? I mean, usually when people think of Hawaii, they go, ooh, that's a bit of paradise.
Oh, it's a convoluted, if you look at Hawaii as a paradise, it is one hell of a convoluted paradise. Let me tell you, but we shouldn't go there. We should stay out of that one.
We can stay out of that. What I want to bring in is it's usually complicated. You know, we have this idea in Chinese medicine, Chinese thought, really, philosophical thought, very simple, yin, yang, okay? Very simple. It's kind of groovy, you know? It's like a cool idea until you're in the midst of experiencing it. You know, that whole idea that yin can move to a point where it turns into yang, it's like, oh, that's so poetic. But like, watch that actually happen in your life. Watch that happen in your political system. Watch that happen in your neighborhood because of whatever's going on in your neighborhood. And it goes from being poetic to being a kind of tyranny. Like, oh, too much of that. That's a problem. Too much fire, too much cold.
Yeah. But you know, my experience is that individuals who think, as you just sort of presented, who think they look at things and when they're just not sure what to do, they kind of go, okay, there's yin and there's yang. Let me see what's going on here, you know, within the context of yin and yang. People who can do that are usually my friends. People who can't do that usually are not particularly close because they've lost a simple ability to just see reality, see nature and see experience in a simple sort of way rather than being overwhelmed by all of the facets of it, you know. So yin and yang, I just all the time. When I got regional interdependence, for instance, the first thing I did, and I'm online looking at all the definitions of regional interdependence, they had these ideas of like these kinetic chains, right? So these lines of force from, say, the hip all the way down to the foot. And so the ankle was about mobility. The knee was about stability. The hip was about mobility. And they would look at these lines and you would have these alternating mobility, stability, mobility, stability. And it was just like what you were just saying of yin growing into yang. Like you have this mobility and you get so much mobility, you better have stability or you're going to freaking crash, right? So the mobility, stability feature is just yin and yang playing itself out in this whole kinetic chain, and it's so beautiful. It's so simple.
I love it.
I love it too.
Just hearing you riff on mobility, stability, you could put a little bass line down on that, get a little 12-bar blues going.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
There's that. But, it makes me think not just with physicality. This is an important principle just in working with people, right? There's a certain time you need to be flexible, and there's other times you need to be firm.
Yeah, that's exactly perfect language. But matter of fact, I got to write that down. Flexible and firm. Beautiful. Yeah.
It never gets boring, does it?
No. And these are just labels. We come up with these labels, but yet when you use those as filters, as you're looking at reality, observing, the whole, sometimes there's just so much stuff out there. It's like walking into a shopping center, going into Macy's, there's so much stuff. It's overwhelming. Sometimes just having flexible and firm, having the yin and the yang clear in your mind allows you to kind of filter it down and just not get overwhelmed by how wild reality can sometimes be,
It is pretty wild. Well, I often ask people to give a little advice to like new practitioners, but because we've been talking more about like later phases of practice, I'm wondering if you have any thoughts to share with people who are in a mid or maybe later stage of their practice in terms of things to look for or things to practice or just things to be attentive to. Because a mid-practice is very different than a beginning practice.
Oh, I probably could say some things that might be helpful, but that's a tough question. I think as you move into that later stage, I think you have to have some sense about specialization. You have to be able to cut out, I'm no longer going to be doing X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to just focus my energy more on A, B, and C. Maybe it's just orthopedic, or maybe it's just, OBGYN, whatever your interest is, but trying to limit it and make it a little bit more focused as a specialty or a subspecialty of acupuncture. And then you've got health. And this is what brought you to me, is seeing my posting about getting the flu in Italy and then coming back and having mononucleosis. And from June till September of this summer, I was never more than 20 minutes away from my bed, because I just had to rest. I was wasted, exhausted, fatigued. And yet I still saw patients once it was safe and I wasn't going to pass on more virus. So I think it's understanding the limitations that your physical body is going to have. You're just not going to be as the same as when you were younger. So part of that is, I think, an important thing to recognize. And it's really important to recognize it and not talk about it very much. Talk about it enough so that you can get understanding about it, but don't keep reporting your symptom. Don't start complaining about symptoms and talking about symptoms over and over, just as our elders that we've come in to contact with sometimes. All they do is talk about their health. It gets boring. It doesn't work. It doesn't get you anywhere. And I've finally learned that. So I think you need to put it in a container and really have to learn how to do things, even if you don't feel all that good, if you don't feel all that well. When you can give a good treatment and you're not feeling so good, it's not about yourself anymore. It's about your non-self. It's about something else. So if you're not well, you should still be able to give just as good of a treatment as if you're well or not well.
It's another way of focusing your attention. I've got one more question. A patient asked me this the other day. I know for myself, I had this idea that, well, if I practice medicine, it's going to give me a pass uncertain problems in life. Because, yeah, you're laughing.
Already. Yeah.
Number one, because maybe I got a little more merit because I'm doing something good for the world. Maybe because I have some skills to deal with problems. But I had a patient come in the other day, and she said, I'm just heartbroken. I think it's her sister's friend or sister's, some relative, closest relative, who happens to be an acupuncturist, had gotten really ill, actually deathly ill, on the way out. She's looking at me, and she's asking me, Michael, how's it possible? Chinese medicine and acupuncture, it's so amazing. I've been coming here for years. I love it. Like, how can someone who practices this get sick?
Yeah.
You're laughing. I kind of laugh, but I've also been in that place where maybe I can get a pass on this.
That's what blasted me this summer. Being so sick, I had to cancel all plans. My GP, when she got the mono titers, the viral titers, she said, "Whit, you have to count your recovery, not in days, not in weeks, in months." This was June. She says, "Why don't you come back? We'll do more blood work in November and see how you're doing." And I went, "Wait, June, July, August, September, October. That's 6 months." She said, "Yep, you have to count by months at this point." And it's sort of like a long COVID or something. But yeah, this is what happened. I mean, so this really shifted me a lot, and I don't know where it shifted me to yet.
Yeah, because it's obvious we're not immune to aging and what comes with aging, which to some degree is illness. I don't think we get a bypass on it. So how do we incorporate it? How do we incorporate it into our practice? I don't have an answer.
I don't have an answer either, but it's a great question. And it's a great question to understand that you don't have an answer. But it's a great question to just hold. And again, find a way to come to grips with, accept whatever you're feeling, however you're feeling. For me, it was just unbelievable fatigue. And I'm not a person that has had fatigue problems in my life, to accept what it is you have and still be able to practice. Now, some people may just have to keep all the energy to themselves, for their own healing and just have to, shut the practice down because they're not well enough. That may be what some people have to do. But if you can keep practicing, God, it sure keeps you out of this victim role. And you just have to keep going. But that's coming from someone who probably will practice all the way until the day I die or the day that I am no longer capable of doing this. So not everybody has that disease.
In the beginning, we practice because we're looking to make money and a livelihood and a life. Over time, of course, things shift. Hopefully, we got more resources as time goes on. That's usually the way that arc works. We may not have to do it as much for money, but hearing you talk about practicing as a way of being connected to the world, of being in the world, of getting a little bit out of yourself so you can be with others. I mean, that just sounds like spiritual practice to me. Good work if you can get it.
Okay. I think we've really covered a whole lot of interesting and deep topics, and we've laughed a little, and I've had a good time.
I have too. Thank you. I keep coming back to this in my mind about the paring away of things as a way of getting to the essence of things. And hearing you talk about your illness, it's a kind of paring away. And hearing how you also would show up to practice, there's a clarity of what's essential. So that story is a real gift, and I appreciate it. So thanks so much for that and for the whole conversation. It's been a delight.
Fun for me. Okay, Michael, thank you so much, and continue with your great work with Geological Podcasts. Doing wonders, bro.
It's part of the practice. Until next time, then. Well, that's it for today's conversation with Whitfield Reeves. After decades in practice, his reflections on legacy, mentorship, and the evolution of acupuncture are a reminder that this medicine, it's always changing, both in the world and within us. I appreciated his honesty about the weight of responsibility that practitioners carry and how learning when to let go is just as important as knowing when to hold on. His thoughts on empirical learning, the power of specialization, and the role of mentorship offer a roadmap for those navigating the long arc of a career. Here's something worth remembering. Wisdom isn't something that you keep, it's something that you pass along. There are way more conversations here on Qiological about how to get a practice cranked up, but for now, not so many about the challenges and opportunities of late-stage practice. We do have one episode with Charlie Braverman. That's number 172, The Sunset of a Practice. I suspect that as more of us live into the later years of practice, we'll have more conversations about just what that looks and feels like. In the meantime, I can tell you this. The time, it goes by faster than you can imagine when you're at the beginning and trying to figure out how to make a go of it as a practitioner. One thing that I found along the way is that it's more helpful to have a few questions that you can take on the journey of 3 or 4 decades than it is to have a few answers that make you comfortable in the present moment. See if you can find one question that you'd be happy to chew on for the next 20 years. A question like that truly does make for a trustworthy traveling companion. Well, here we are at the end of this episode. If you've listened up to this point, you're either a rabid fan of Qiological or the forward button on your podcast player stopped working. If you are indeed a fan of the podcast, you can help us to bring new episodes to our community of practitioners by supporting us with a membership or a one-time contribution. Details, of course, are on the website. That's it for today, friends. Join us again next Tuesday for another thoughtful episode of Qiological.